In another time and another place, a modern poet named Bob Dylan, if I can call him a poet, said, "How many deaths will it take till we know that too many people have died?" Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, it's taken far too many deaths to get us to this point. Gun violence is plaguing all of our communities in many different ways, whether it's guns on the street or whether it's people with mental problems killing lots of people at once. I'm somewhat concerned that I'm hearing from some members here, well, it hasn't happened in New York, therefore there's no basis for the law that we're considering today. It happened in Connecticut. It's happened throughout the country. It's time we stepped up to protect the people in our state. Every one of these incidents affects all of us, and every one of these incidents sets the stage for the next one. We need an effective common sense plan. I would suggest that we need to keep guns away from those who would misuse them. Remove the opportunity. Don't have them there. Ban the military-style weapons. Register all guns. Regulate their transfer. Mandate that all guns in this state must be securely stored. Carefully license every gun owner. Train them in gun safety and check them periodically to make sure they're still qualified. That doesn't repeal the Second Amendment. It just makes it work for everyone. Secondly, we need to use more mental health professionals in our communities to minimize the likelihood of violence. When we deal at budget time, I challenge my colleagues to join me in putting more money in the budget for mental health facilities rather than cutting the government services that are out there today. And lastly, I think we need to change our culture and the political dynamic. Let's stop glorifying violence, guns, and those who use them. All I hear today is we need to have these weapons to defend ourselves. Well, we're not going to be invaded by an army. Mr. Speaker, guns are not toys, and we've got to stop treating them like toys. Guns are made to kill people, and assault weapons to kill a lot of people. So why are we shocked when they're used for their intended purposes? We allow civilians to arm themselves for war. Why are we shocked when they act like they're in the middle of a war? The answer is not more violence. The answer is to make sure that we have reasonable gun laws. The answer is not to arm everyone so that gun manufacturers can make more money and more people die. The Second Amendment does not guarantee the right to bear arms to kill innocent firefighters, teachers, and children. And that's the message we have to send. We are under siege by those who misuse guns. No one is safe in this country until we get reasonable gun laws. Lax gun laws are literally killing us. We need to stop the violence now. It's been said that a camel is a horse drawn by committee. Well, Mr. Chairman, this legislation was drawn by a big committee, by a lot of people with a lot of disparate interests. We did not get a racehorse. We got a camel. And this camel is carrying us in the right direction, and it'll bring us to a safer place. But it's taken us very slowly. Some of my colleagues have pointed out some of the defects in this legislation, and therefore they say do nothing. No, I suggest we put in some future legislation. If there is a problem, if we are not restricting enough guns because some are still out there, if we're not taking guns away, if we're not taking all assault weapons away, well, then I challenge my colleagues, join me. I'll put in legislation that says none of these guns at all, period. If that's a problem with this legislation, because those of us who wanted stronger anti-gun violence measures compromised with those who don't want anything at all, and you're saying that's bad, well then fine, let's fix it. I'll be glad to carry that legislation. But the drafters of this legislation tried to accommodate all interests and tried to quell the concerns of the Second Amendment advocates. So you ended up with legislation which is not as strong as it could be. But it's a step forward. We're going in the right direction, and we're sending a message. I hear over and over again about lawful gun owners who have legally owned guns. It strikes me that all guns somewhere along the way started off as legal and in the hands of a lawful gun owner. but somehow it ends up in the hands of somebody who misuses it. The problem is we as a government have not kept them in the hands of lawful people. We've allowed them to get out of their other hands. We in Westchester County have a law that says every gun owner has to have every gun safely stored so that it cannot be stolen, that it cannot get into the hands of someone with a mental problem, it cannot get into the hands of kids. Why are we not considering that for the entire state? Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the opportunity to speak in favor of this legislation. Hopefully this will bring us forward to a little bit of a better place. I think there's still a lot more that needs to be done. Those of us who want to stop gun violence are going to continue the efforts to move forward. But I urge an affirmative vote because I think this is a very good piece of legislation and deserves the support of this legislature.